Dictionary.com defines patriotism as being a devoted love, support, and defense of one's country. It is a national loyalty. Sometimes we see patriotism in unexpected places. Take this man for example. This is Gustus Bozarth. An El Paso security camera caught him rescuing the American flag after it had fallen in a storm.
It's raining in El Paso, the wind is blowing, and a local business owner finally comes back after the storm. The flagpole is knocked down, debris is everywhere, yet the flag is neatly folded military style. Take a look at this. It's the homeless man named Gustus Bozarth. He went out in the storm, and all he had with him were his cats, and of course that surveillance camera watching his every move. This is a guy who says he's roamed around the country for years taking odd jobs. He once worked as a security guard in Tampa, Florida, and that is where he learned to fold this flag. Despite being homeless, he has great love of his homeland.
We hear about this kind of patriotism, but does everyone share these ideals and values about our country? According to Robert Reach, there are two types of patriotism today. One is an inclusive patriotism that binds us together for the common good. The other is an exclusive patriotism that keeps others out and tells us to fear foreigners who may be terrorists. Real patriotism should not include a contempt for others, but should celebrate democracy, equal opportunity, freedom, tolerance, and generosity.
Patriotism has changed over the last few decades. In a New York Times article, Lynn Vavrick talks about the decline of patriotism in younger Americans. She reports that 81% of the silent generation, which are those in their 70s and 80s, love America, while only 58% of millennials, those in their 20s to mid-30s, feel the same. In fact, Vavrick reports that 78% of the silent generation considers their American identity to be extremely important. That drops to 70% for baby boomers, 60% of Generation Xers, and only 45% of young adults define themselves this way. Millennials, according to a recent report by the Pew Research Center, are detached from institutions, linked by social media, burdened by debt, distrustful of people, in no rush to marry, and optimistic about the future. They read stories about affairs and relationships rather than current issues that America is dealing with. Traditional symbols of American democracy seem less meaningful to today's young Americans. They are different from older adults back when they were in their 20s to mid-30s.
Today's millennials have no problem standing up against the government. The First Amendment gives them the right to do so, but they also need to remember that their freedom of speech comes at a cost. Many men and women have lost their lives protecting our freedom. So how can we help remind today's youth what it means to be an American? How can we help young Americans become more patriotic? In January of 1989, Ronald Reagan gave a speech on patriotism. Let's take a look at what he feels is the solution to the decline of patriotism in young people.
We've got to do a better job of getting across that America is freedom. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of enterprise. And freedom is special and rare. It's fragile. It needs production. So we've got to teach history based not on what's in fashion, but what's important. Why the Pilgrims came here, who Jimmy Doolittle was, and what those 30 seconds over Tokyo meant. You know, 4 years ago, on the 40th anniversary of D-Day, I read a letter from a young woman writing to her late father, who had fought on Omaha Beach. Her name was Lisa Zanata Henn, and she said, "We will always remember. We will never forget what the boys of Normandy did." Well, let's help her keep her word. If we forget what we did, we won't know who we are. I'm warning of an eradication of the American memory that could result ultimately in an erosion of the American spirit. Let's start with some basics. More attention to American history and a greater emphasis on civic ritual. And let me offer lesson number one about America. All great change in America begins at the dinner table. So tonight in the kitchen, I hope the talking begins. And children, if your parents haven't been teaching you what it means to be an American, let them know and nail them on it. That would be a very American thing to do.
It is important for young people to understand patriotism because they hold the future of our country in their hands. That is why families must reinforce characteristics of good citizenship like courage, responsibility, and gratitude. Schools must teach students the principles of freedom, equality, and justice. We have to help young people understand that the United States of America is a great country and worthy of their love and respect. God bless America.